uh, can I just redo it? Can I just redo the mixture and compound?
I'm just starting the recording. You can start with it again.
Okay, fine. So we have mixtures and compounds. I was just talking about that in mixtures, what happens is you're just physically mixing two things. Let it be by probably by mixing it with hand, or then you're mixing it by heating it, or you're mixing it by cooling it, or you're mixing it by beating it. By whatever method, you are not changing the chemical formula. So if I have taken salt and water, and if I'm mixing salt and water, what I get at the end, I call it to be as a salt water mixture. So what happens is, since water is a liquid, the molecules of the water, that is the formula of water is H2O. The molecules of H2O are so far apart from each other that there is some gap between them. Okay, like imagine in your classroom you are sitting and there are benches. Between the benches there is some place. So imagine your bench to be a molecule, the other bench is the molecule. There is again some space between them. So what happens is that the sodium chloride, that is the salt that you're adding, is going and sitting in between there. So in going and sitting in between there, it is not changing the chemical formula. The chemical formula is remaining the same. Such a formation is called as a mixture. So in mixture, you're just physically mixing two things. That is why the word comes physical. So mixture is physical. Okay, but when I say compound, if supposing I have mixed hydrogen and oxygen and both of them are combining and becoming H2O. Now they have become water, H2O. So then I say that it is a compound. So when I'm chemically doing something with some compound, then with some elements, some compound, some substances, I will call that to be a compound. But whenever I'm just physically doing anything with two substances, then I call that to be a mixture. Okay, like air is a mixture of gas. Cereal, we add a lot of there is a mixture of lot many things into the cereal. Then you put it into the milk again. It is again a mixture. Soda is a mixture of sweet water, sweet sweet any flavored water along with carbon dioxide gas. Okay, fog is a mixture of water suspended in air, and Kool-Aid is a mixture of when you're adding water, sugar, and flavor into it. Okay, this is exactly how mixtures and compound is. Now we'll go back to the slide of chromatography. Now you'll be in a better understanding of what the definition says, that chromatography is a physical separation. Because the mixture was physically made, you have to separate it also by physical method, not by any chemicals. Without using means no chemical reaction will take place. It will only happen by physical separation, by just some method you will apply. For example, uh, if I have got a mixture of big rocks and small rocks, okay, what I do is I just let it flow from a slope. What will happen? The smaller rocks will travel little bit more further, and the bigger rocks will fall down very easily. Why? Because of gravity. So here, by applying gravity, did you apply any chemical reaction to it? No, you just applied a physical technique, that is gravity. The same way in chromatography also we'll use certain physical technique because of which we can separate the mixtures separately into its own component. Okay, so here chromatography we are using to separate what things we use to separate inks, dyes, where the inks are found in pens, markers, clothings. Then it can also be used to separate pigments in the plants. In the plants, all the pigments that are there because of which the plant color comes. In a plant, we see the leaves color, we can see it green color, yellow color, orange color. All those pigments, they are just present there. They are not actually chemically mixed into each other. So they're just physically in a mixture form in the leaf. So we can separate those components very easily by using the technique of chromatography. Okay, the technique of chromatography can be very easy and it can be very difficult depending on what material you are trying to separate. Okay, so here for making you understand, we do chromatography for ink, for marker pens. We do that. Little bit more detailing you go, you can do it uh, for even plant pigments, as I just told you about. More going more into detail, you can also separate DNA materials, DNA fragments, all cellular components can also be separated using the chromatography. Chromatography is a very wide range. That is why so many Nobel Prizes have been won into it. Okay, so we'll go to the next. Okay. So, in chromatography, what you need to understand is what is the meaning of solution. Okay. So, when I'm making a solution, I'm mixing two things. Say I'm mixing sugar and water. So, I'm mixing sugar, I'm mixing water. I'm mixing two components. If I'm making tea, I am mixing milk, water, sugar, tea powder. All these four things will be there. So whenever I'm mixing something, I'm calling it to be as my solution. Okay. The substances that we use in a small quantity, we call them to be a solute. Solute will be the substances that we are putting in a solution in smaller quantities. And solvent is the one that we're putting it in big quantities, in larger quantities. So if supposing here I'm making lemonade, in the lemonade when I'm making it, I am putting very less quantity of lemon, that would be my solute, and my solvent would be water. Okay, and even if sugar or whatever you're putting, salt would come into the solute. So all the things that you put in less quantity are called as solute, and the ones that you put in the larger quantity, you call them to be as solvent. Ocean water, if you compare ocean water, the salt that is there is in less quantity and water is in very much big quantity. So salt will be called as the solute, and water will be called as the solvent. So always remember, the things that you are using more in quantity, you call them as solvent. The things that you're using in less quantity, you're calling them as solute. Okay. Now, this we're talking about solution and the components of the solution. So solution has two parts. One is solute and one is solvent. Okay. Now, solubility is another factor. Okay. There could be some substances that don't mix into each other. Okay. So if I take soil and I mix water, they will not mix into each other. How much ever you try, soil and water will not mix into each other. So then I call that soil is insoluble in water. Insoluble. Okay. If supposing I am taking oil and water, whatever you try, they are not going to mix into each other. So I say they are immiscible or they are insoluble into each other. If I am adding sugar or salt in water, I say it is soluble in water. So this is another dictionary words that you all need to understand. Um, Solubility, that is soluble and insoluble. So in a solution there are two parts: less quantity solute, more quantity solvent. And if two things mix into each other well, you call them as soluble. If two things don't mix into each other, then you call them as insoluble. Why is this being taken? Because I will be using these words further on when I'm explaining more about chromatography. So up till now, is the concept of mixture clear? Physical separation, solubility, solute, solvent, is these concepts clear? Then we'll go further on. Okay, so now chromatography, as we discussed, is a technique or is a method to separate mixtures into their individual components. Why is it so? Why do we need to do that? So that further we can analyze them, we can purify them, we can quantify them. So if I have got an unknown mixture, I can first of all I can identify what components are there. Secondly, I can analyze, okay, this component A has this quality, component B has this quality. So I'm going to analyze them. I may have done it for purification method also. I what probably my mixture was there, I wanted to purify. So I have purified it by using this chromatography and also quantify also. I wanted to know that in my mixture, A component was in how much quantity, B component was in how much quantity. So I have got into the quantify method into it. Okay. How this technique is working? The technique is working on the basis of the molecules present. So whatever molecules were present in the mixture, on the left hand side you can see the mixture is there. There are yellow molecules, there are blue color molecules, there are red color molecules, and there are black color molecules. Correct? All these molecules are there in the mixture and they are going to separate when I'm going to use the technique of chromatography into separate components. You can see how the yellow, the red, and all those components have mixed, have separated from each other. Okay, now this happens on two phases. One phase will always be a stationary phase, and one phase will always be a mobile phase. So in chromatography, technology or chromatography technique, I have got two parts. One part is stationary. What do I mean by stationary? Something that is always there, then and there only. It is not going to change. Stationary, you can relate yourself to station. Station is standing there only. The train moves on the station, but the station is there only. So stationary phase is going to be standing only. It is not going to be moving from anywhere. It is not going to be it is not going to move from its place. The mobile itself means it is moving. Okay, it is we have got no mobile vans. The mobile vans continuously move. So the mobile is what is going to continuously move away. So the mobile phase will be moving. So in chromatography, you have got two mediums. One medium is the stationary medium, and the second medium is the mobile medium. Okay, and the molecules, they love to spend their time in the mobile phase. The more they are into the mobile phase, they can move, they can separate out. So rather than staying on the stationary phase, the components, the molecules which are there in the mixture, they want to move in the mobile phase. This is the crux of chromatography. So the first part of the chromatography that we are talking about is that chromatography is a physical separation technique. Okay, and because of this, um, we are able to analyze, to purify, to identify, to quantify the components in our mixtures. Chromatography has got two phases. One is called as the stationary phase and one is called as the mobile phase. Okay, you can also call it phase, you can also call it medium also. Stationary medium, mobile medium. Okay, and the molecules which were there in my mixture, they want to move along with the mobile phase. They want to move with the mobile phase. So they love to spend most of the time in the mobile phase rather than staying on the stationary phase, because the minute they are more on the stationary phase, they will get stuck there. Okay, so they love to stay on the mobile phase. Okay, so we'll go to the next detailing. Okay, so as I said, there are two phases. One is a stationary phase and one is a mobile phase. Okay, in the stationary phase, the stationary phase could either be a solid. Okay, It could be a solid, for example, it could be paper, it could be a it could be a thick liquid. It could be a very thick liquid which we have bonded onto a another solid. For example, if I have taken glass and on the glass I have put white color chalk. Okay, so I'm making a very thick white chalk powder along with water. Okay, and the minute I'm putting it on the, the glass medium, it gets stuck there, and it gets stuck there. What happens? It gets solidified there. So here my stationary phase could either be something like a solid, or it could be a liquid which has further gone and become into a thick phase. Okay, so this is called as my stationary phase. What happens with my mobile phase? My mobile phase could be a liquid or it could be a gas, because it has to be moving. So there are two things that move. The liquid moves, the gas moves. So my mobile phase could be liquid or the mobile phase could be gas. The stationary phase could be either solid or it could be a thick liquid or liquid. So the stationary phase can be solid or liquid, but the mobile phase can be either liquid or gas, depending on the type of chromatography that we're dealing with. We'll go to that when we'll go to the next presentation. But here to understand, chromatography has two parts: stationary phase and mobile phase. Stationary phase could be made up of solid or a liquid which further goes and gets solidified. Okay, for example, gel also. Okay, gel is what? Gel is a liquid, but further if you go and set it, it becomes into gel is liquid, but further if you go and you set it, it becomes a solid, right? So it could be a jelly kind of a material also. So your solid or liquid could come into the stationary phase depending on what type of chromatography you're dealing with. And your liquid phase could either your mobile phase could be either a liquid or a gas, again depending on what type of chromatography you're dealing with. Okay, um, it is very important for us to properly choose the stationary and the mobile phase. The person who is doing the chromatography needs to have some idea of what the component is there and how it will react with, with which stationary phase it will give a better result, with which liquid phase it will with which mobile phase it will give a better result. That has to be understood by the person who is doing it. So the chemist, whoever is dealing with this chromatography, needs to understand that. Okay, and there's something which is called as distribution ratio. There should be a proper distribution ratio that the person needs to know, that the distribution ratio is amongst the selected phases must differ for each analyte in order for them to separate. So for example, if I go to see, let's take for example, I'm analyzing blood. Okay, I am working in a crime department, I'm analyzing blood, I want to analyze the blood components, probably of a crime scene. Okay, and I need to understand that my blood will be distributed well. What will be the distribution of it? How well it will be soluble in the solid phase? How well it will be soluble in the mobile phase? Uh, according to the material that I have chosen. So that needs to be understood by the chemist very well. Okay. So in chromatography, two important points. You have got a stationary phase, you have a mobile phase. The stationary phase, you need to choose it well. It could be solid or liquid, depending on what your material is, or and the mobile phase could be liquid or gas, depending on your component, depending on your mixture. Okay, next. Okay, so we have got, these are some of the types. Um, okay, I have a question which says, what is the meaning of analyze? Analyze means to understand, to judge what things are there. Okay, so if supposing you have got small kids and you give them, different shapes, and you tell them, "Okay, okay, now arrange the shapes according to their colors, or arrange the shapes." So what they're analyzing in their mind, they are deciding in their mind, okay, there's a yellow color, so I'll put all the yellow colors together, or probably there is a circle, so I'll put all the circular objects together. So that thing that is going in your mind is what you call as analyze. You try to find out what is there in the mixture. That is called as analyze. Okay. So okay, we'll go to the types of chromatography. The types of chromatography are gas chromatography, liquid chromatography, thin layer chromatography. Okay. So what is gas chromatography? Gas chromatography is going to be when you are determining the chemical composition of whatever substance that you don't know, okay, in gasoline. In gasoline means a gas, okay. So probably in kerosene or in petrol or something of that sort, you are analyzing the material. So your mobile phase that you're using here is your gas. The mobile phase, if you're using gas, you call it to be as gas chromatography. Okay. What is liquid chromatography? Liquid chromatography is when you are using liquid as the mobile phase. Okay. And this method, we normally use it for identifying plant pigments. Okay. In the nature, when we are identifying the plant pigments, we are using this liquid chromatography technique. Okay. Then there is a thin layer chromatography. What is thin layer chromatography? Where you're using a very thin layer of the solid. Okay, so that could be either a plastic or a glass, and on that you're putting a liquid that will go and solidify on it. Okay, or a gel that will go and solidify on that thin layer of your solid, of your stationary phase. Okay, this technique is also used for uh, for identifying the composition of the components. Okay. Okay. Then the next method that we are doing is paper chromatography. What is paper chromatography? When you are using paper, when we are basically using paper to separate the components, that is when we call it to be a paper chromatography. Okay. So depending on whatever your mobile or your stationary phase is, we have got different types of chromatography. Okay. Is the terms clear up till now? Up till the type of chromatography, are we clear up till now?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Okay. Okay. So we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so see, in this animation, we have tried to present how the red molecules and there are green molecules. Okay, so both of them are the components that were there in the mixture. Okay, and this entire blue color dots that you can see, those are the solid phase. Okay, so the solid phase is how that solid phase is going to let those molecules move. Okay, so what will happen is the solid phase will make the molecules stop, and the mobile phase will make the molecules move. Okay, so the more soluble your molecules are in the mobile phase, they will move accordingly. Okay, and it will also depend on the size of your molecules also. So if here we'll play this once more, but first let me finish the explanation. You will see that how on the left hand side there are both red and green color dots, and the minute chromatography technique is applied, you will see that the green color is more soluble in the mobile phase rather than staying back in the solid phase. So the solid is trying to pull it back, but the mobile phase is taking it with it. And the green wins the race, and the green goes more further than the red one. And the red ones stay back. Okay, so basically, chromatography, you can compare it like a race. Okay, who is going to reach to the farthest more point? Okay, it could be depending on different types of chromatographies, like in gas, it would be which one is more soluble in the gas. In the liquid one also, which one is more soluble in the liquid. When we go to gel, there's something on the thin layer chromatography, there are more types. This is just a very brief of it. There are more types in thin layer chromatography. We get one type that is called as agarose gel electrophoresis. So in that, what happens in that kind of chromatography, what happens is that the components are moving according to their uh, gravity, according to their weight. Okay, so the more the lighter they are, the more farther they will reach. Okay, so this is exactly what happens. It we'll see this animation again. See how they are moving all the mixtures, and you can see that the green one has reached the farthest place, but the red one is still a little bit behind it. Okay, so by this I separated also my components very easily, so it was very good for me to observe them. Okay, so I can separated them very well. Okay, we'll go to the next. Here we'll see again one animation is given out here. You'll see that how the components are being separated. So we'll see it. This is mixture is there. Below I have put my mobile phase. That would be probably water or alcohol. I've put that. Okay. This is my thin layer chromatogram which I'm using. It could be paper also. It could be a glass uh, with liquid bonded to it also. Okay, anything of it, it could be it, but it's a thin layer type of material. And now what am I doing next? Next I am putting my different components. I'm putting a red color, blue color, and then a green color. Now I'm letting these three components stay on my solid, and I'm letting my liquid get into it. So what will happen? My liquid is getting to my thin layer, and the liquid is going to run with it. We call it as the run. Okay, we call it as the run. Now here your liquid is going to act as a solvent. The one that is in more quantity, the solvent. So the solvent is running. So the maximum the solvent is running is going up and up and up. Okay. Here the minute it goes up, the one that was in the blue one reached the maximum height, red was below, and the green one was in between. Okay. So this is probably the different inks, and we come to know till what height each ink can go. Okay, you can see it once more how they all are moving. So the solvent is taking them. The one that is more soluble in the solvent will go highest up. The one that is less soluble will be the one that is the lowest one, and the in between one is in between. Okay. Next. One somebody has asked, how do we know that how glass is a thin layer? Okay, you get glass of many layers. Okay, you get. Have you seen glasses in those delicate, uh, uh, glasses that you drink some kind of drink or something in the restaurants? You get thick ones also, thin ones also. You get glass as thin also. Okay, very thin ones also. Okay, so don't always think that glasses are thick. Glasses can be very thin also. We can decide what kind of thickness we want with the glass. Okay, now here I'll be quickly doing two types of chromatography. One is called as paper chromatography, that you can do it in your house. It is very easy. You will be able to do it in your house. Okay. And the second one that you'll be doing it is thin layer chromatography. That also, that technique you can't do it, but that technique you will observe it your only. Okay. The paper chromatography, how does it work? Okay, in that you can need a very large beaker. Okay, or instead of a beaker, we don't have beakers at home right now, so you can use a glass you can use. Then you need filter papers. You don't have filter papers, you can use a normal paper also, or you can use a tissue paper also. Okay, so any kind of a paper can be used. You need black markers, black, not permanent markers. You need black color sketch pens. Okay, black color sketch pens is what you are needing to carry out this technique. Okay, and you will need pencils and tape to tape it, so that the thing does not move from its place. Okay, now what are we going to do? Uh, on the We are going to first take a paper. Okay, on the paper you can see below we have put a line which is called as the ink mark. Can you see there? There's an ink mark written out there. Okay, so on the paper you can take, and approximately 1 to 2 centimeters from the below level, you're going to mark a line which will be called as a ink mark. That marking you can do it with a pencil. Okay, with a pencil you can do a lining. Okay, and on that line you're going to put 2 or 3 points of black sketch pen. Black sketch pen is what you're going to do the points of. Okay, probably at little bit distances from each other so that they don't smudge into each other. Okay, now you're going to take a pencil and you're going to roll your uh, paper on the pencil and tape it there, so that when you are filling little quantity, say around 5 ml or 10 ml of water in your glass. Okay, and when you are inserting this entire apparatus into the water, the marks that you have put on that ink mark line will not go into the water. It should be above the water level, just exactly how it is shown here. Okay, can you see it? The ink mark is above the water level. Okay, see, the paper has to be dipped in the water. The paper will be dipped in the water, but the ink mark will be above the water line. Okay, so the pencil and the taping is just so that you can adjust the height. Otherwise, there is no work of the pencil and the tape. It is just for you to get it into the positioning well. Okay, so after around 2 to 5 minutes, depending on the thickness of the paper that you are using. Okay, you could be using a very thin filter paper. You could be using thick. There is something which is called as coffee filter papers. They are a little bit thicker. Okay, you can try it with a normal paper also. With a normal paper also, you can try it. A A4 size paper. There are sometimes drawing papers. You can try it and you can send us pictures that at home, whatever is available, what kind of results we get with it. Okay. So depending on the paper thickness, you will observe different patterns for your ink. So between 2 to 5 minutes, your entire dots that you have made will start moving up. Okay, and whatever components were there into that black color ink will separate out. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. See, this is exactly what you need to do. You'll take a strip, you'll make a 1 centimeter line from the below, okay? And on that point, you're going to draw a line which will be the ink line with a pencil. And on that, with your sketch pens, you're going to put markings. Firstly, you try it with a black color sketch pen. After that, you can try it with a variety of colors. You can take brown color, you can take blue color, you can take red color, whatever colors you want, you can try it out. Okay. So in this process, what will happen is that you'll come to know that the ink that was there in those pens is made up of how many colors. So when you will observe for the black color, you will come to know that the black color is not only made up of one color, it is made up of 3 to 4 colors. It is made up of red, blue, yellow, purple, and probably different depending on the company of the sketch pens that you are using. Some sketch pens could be having some color more, some color less. Okay, so depending on different companies also, you will get different results. Okay, next slide. This is exactly how it's going to happen. Let's imagine that at my ink level, all those mixture, whatever is there, all those colored mixtures which were there in my markers, in my sketch pens, I have put a dot on it. Okay. The minute I let the water, so here my stationary phase became my filter paper or my paper or whatever, and the mobile phase which I'm using is going to be my water which I'm using. Here we are doing water because you are at home. uh, in the lab we can also do it with alcohol. By that I mean the ethyl alcohol that we use in the lab. Okay. uh, if you all want to try, we have got a lot of alcohols in the house nowadays in the sanitizers. Okay. You can try it with a little bit of sanitizer also. So you can first try it with water, then secondly you can try it with sanitizer also. Okay, when you're trying it with sanitizer, if you have noticed, sanitizer will evaporate out very fast. So when you are putting this entire apparatus, you will have to cover the glass so that your sanitizer does not just evaporate out without moving on the paper. It has to move on the paper. Otherwise, the sanitizer will just evaporate out into the air. Okay. So you can try it with water firstly, then you can try it with a sanitizer also that we have got in the house. Okay, what you will observe is what you are seeing on the right side. All the components are going to separate out. You see that one color is separating out at one level, second color is separating out at second level, third color is separating out at third level. It is not going to be that the separation is going to be haphazard. Okay, that there will be some molecules of red below, some molecules of red up. No, the separation is going to happen very well defined separation. Okay, this is exactly what you're going to observe in your chromatography results. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so y'all are going to uh, take this chart and you're going to record it, that which marker you took. You took a blue marker, you took a red marker, you took a black marker, you took a yellow marker, you you could have taken a fluorescent marker. Okay, whatever you say, you're going to write it in those boxes next to the markers, and which colors you observed, you're going to write it below them. So this table is given to you. In the table, you're going to write which marker. For example, the one right next to the marker hash mark, there you will write marker black. Below that, you're going to write whether it is you saw blue color, red color, yellow color, whatever colors you observe, you're going to write the colors there. So this table is what you are going to fill it up. Along with that, you can also mention on top of it the solvent that you use. If you're going to use different solvent instead of water. Instead of water, if you're using sanitizer, then you can write above water or you can write above it as sanitizer. Okay, is this clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this seems interesting for you all to do it.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you all going to do it or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you do the activities given for y'all last week?
Yes.
Yes. Completed.
Yes,
Okay, very
ma'am.
good. Okay, very good. So please do this activity also and do send us pictures, okay? Because when you send us pictures, we feel so happy to see that the efforts taken by you to understand the topic and to do the experiment well. So once you've done it, you have understood it 100%. You and you will not forget it ever. Okay? Okay. So you are going to do this, okay? Um, and you're going to send us the pic. Next. Okay. Now, this is one very important factor that we are going to use in the analyzing. Someone asked, what do you do by analyze? This is what and how we are going to analyze. That is called as the RF, or it is also called as the retardation factor. RF, retardation factor. Okay. What does it mean? That you're going to calculate the distance from the ink line, from the ink marker line of your separated components divided by the distance traveled completely by your solvent. Okay, and when you will see this, the number that you will get will either be between 0 and 1. So you will get the number as 0 0.1, 0 0.6, 0 0.54, 0 0.39, 0.9, some kind of number you will get, and that number will be fixed for that particular sample. So let's say I am analyzing two blood components at a crime scene, okay, and the blood that I have got from, I am detecting, I am in doubt for two people that could be the person who would be guilty, okay. What I have taken three samples on my chromatography, okay, one of the person A, one of the person B, and in between I'll put for the blood that I found at my crime scene. Now I'll let the chromatography technique happen. Okay, now what will happen is, now if supposing it was the person A who had committed the crime, the the blood that I found at the crime scene would match to the height of the blood that I've taken from the uh, person A. And if it was committed by the crime was committed by the person B, the blood that I took at the crime scene would match to the height of the blood to the person B. Okay, so this way I'm going to find out. I can easily find out the RF factor for this, and I can say that yes, the person at fault is A or B. Okay, see, we'll see next slide, you'll understand it much better. So here let's say I'm calculating the red color. Now, if you see, the red color is little bit smudged, little bit bigger. It is like an oval kind of a lineish shape. So what I'll do is I'll take the in between point of it. I'll take the point in between. I'll not take the highest point or the lowest point of the red one. I'll take the point in between the red color, and I'll start calculating its height from my ink point. Can you see the ink point where I put all the dots? Yes. So I will measure this height. So this height, let's say the height that this has traveled is 10 centimeters. Okay. Now the solvent that I put into my beaker, either water or either alcohol, or sometimes you also use another chemical that we call it as ether, okay, or whatever. Or if supposing I was using gas chromatography, it could be gas, okay. So whatever solvent I used for letting these mixtures separate, that has gone all the way up. Can you see all the way up where it is written the solvent line? So that would be the line from the ink marker to the solvent line. Now this solvent line I'll measure. Let's say I came to know that it is 15 centimeters. So my RF factor that I will calculate will be 10 centimeters divided by 15 centimeters. So 10 divided by 15 centimeters, I will get approximately the value to be as 1 upon 1.5, that would be 0.667, so approximately 0.667. Okay, this is exactly what I'll get the value for my red color. For my red color. Now I'll do the same thing for the yellow color also. I can do the same thing for the orange color also. So how do I use this information further? Is this clear to you all up till now, the RF factor?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so now how I'm going to use this RF factor? Let's say I know the RF factors of the pigments that are found in the green plants. Okay, the green plants has got the pigments chlorophyll. Okay, it has got chlorophyll A, chlorophyll B, chlorophyll E, chlorophyll F, xanthophyll, and so many other pigments are there in the plant. So what am I doing is, I know the RF factor. Let's say I take a plant, I take a flowering plant. Let's say I'm taking the mango plant, okay? Because there's mango season, I'm going to say mango. I'll take the mango plant and I'll take the leaves, and from the leaves, I'm going to do this technique of chromatography. Now, in that, I came to know that there are four components separated out, and I get the RF factors for it. Now I will refer it to the table that I already have before. So when I come to know that, I see that one of my color is showing RF zero point 0.5, that was referring to chlorophyll B, which I already know beforehand. So I can say that in my mango plant, there is the presence of chlorophyll B. Okay, this is how I'm going to use it. One another point, this what did I say, RF? I'm going to divide, right? I'm going to divide 10 centimeters by 15 centimeters. So if I'm dividing two of them, it is going to be a ratio. There will be no unit attached to it. Like how we say, no, for length we say 10 centimeters. For speed, I will say so many kilometers per hour. But for ratio, there is no speed because it is a ratio. Both the units will get cancelled off. So this will have no unit. The RF is without a unit. Like how temperature we say 100 degrees Celsius, or we say 100 degrees Fahrenheit. For RF, you will have no unit attached to it. Okay, next. So this is what you are going to do. You will test. This is what we are supposed to give you, and then you all are going to do it. Okay, but you all can do it at your home easily. You know, we give you mystery marks, and then you all are going to compare it with the strips hanging in the classroom, and then you can say that pen A matches to which strip. So that has got which RF factor. So depending on the RF factor, we are going to have this challenge. So whenever we meet up for a real class, this is an activity that we'll be doing it on hands. Okay, next. Okay. This was about paper chromatography. Now we're talking about thin layer chromatography. In thin layer chromatography, I told you we use some kind of a thick liquid which will get solidified on some solid material. Okay, which gets solidified on some thin layer. Okay, so the ones that are more attracted to the solid will stay down. The ones that are less attracted to the solid will move up. So I will say the ones that are most soluble in the solvent will move more higher up, and the ones that are less soluble will stay down. It's the same technique how we did it in paper. But in paper, we used paper. In thin layer chromatography, what we do is we use a thick liquid. We dip uh, uh, our thin glass layers into those thick liquids, and we allow it to solidify in the room temperature. The minute it solidifies, we put markings out there, we put our ink marks or whatever mixture we want to find out, we put it there, and we put it again into the solvent, just like the paper chromatography. The only difference between paper and thin layer chromatography is In paper, the stationary phase is paper. Here, the stationary phase is some solidified liquid on a thin layer. That is why it is called as a thin layer chromatography. And the same way, you'll be able to see that how your mixture is put at a ink line. On that ink marker line, you'll put it into the solvent. The solvent will run. You say that the solvent is running, so the solvent is going to run from the ink mark line above, and you'll see that the components will separate out. Once the components separate out, you can take the RF factor for it. Okay, so here you can see on the right side the RF factor is shown. X is the run for the blue ones, and Y is the run for the solvent, right from below marker to up where the solvent has run. So you'll do that distance that it has been run divided by the distance run by the solvent, and you will get the RF factor for it. We can see that it is an animation. We can see that animation once more. Okay. See, the green color is the mixture. The solvent is running. And see, the green color actually looks green, but it's actually made up of two colors. One is blue and one is yellowish or probably orangish. Okay, so this is how you're going to find out. You're going to do for at least 4 or 5 pen colors, markers, and sketch pens. You're going to do it and you're going to let us know. Okay, and please also find out the RF factor for it. I'm very sure you must have understood the RF factor concept. Okay, so this scientist Michael Sweet, he was a Russian scientist somewhere around 1870 to 1920. Okay, he used the chromatography technique to separate the plant pigments. So see, uh, how he used chromatography for separating plant pigments. So that is how he was awarded a Nobel Prize for it also. Yes, and uh, he came up with this technique, and we say it was a new technology that time. Okay, and it was also used for the analysis of written in color along with the length of the adsorbent column. Uh, Now here, the one concept which is still to be done is here chromatography works on the concept of adsorption. Okay. Now, if supposing you have seen sponge, when you put sponge in water, what happens? The sponge, the water will enter into the sponge. So you say the water is getting absorbed. ABSORB. Okay. If right now you see somewhere you're sitting in your house and there is a layer of dust on the wall or layer of dust on the window. It is on the window, right? It is on the glass. It is not entering into the glass. So it is on the glass. So here you will use the word adsorb. Adsorb. AD. So chromatography works on the technique of adsorption, not absorption. The components are not getting absorbed into the components. They're getting adsorbed. So the adsorption is what the chromatography technique is based on. So the physical component that we are using in chromatography is called as adsorption. ADSO B, or if you're using the word adsorption, you'll use ADSORPTION. Adsorption. That is what we're using the chromatography as. So chromatography is based on adsorption and not absorption. Okay. Next. Okay, this you're going to do the experiment. You will be requiring, see, this is exactly how your this will look. Your chromatography paper will look. On the left side you can see the different components have separated out. Okay, now this what finally you get, no, the final component, the final paper or final whatever thin layer that you've taken, that is called as a chromatogram. Chromatogram, because it contains, no, you've done the chromatography technique on it, so it is called as a chromatogram. So chromatogram is the paper or the thin layer or whatever you have used, that will be your chromatograms. So you all are going to send me pictures of your chromatograms. Chromatogram is what you're going to send me the pictures of. Correct? Okay. Next. Um, Again, this is where we are using chromatography. We are using to analyze the mixtures, the components in the mixtures, and how they are related to each other. We can identify the components in the mixtures if they are unknown to us. You can purify them also. You can purify and then you can further go for more studies into it. You can also quantify them, that in this mixture how much quantity of this component is there. Okay, that quantification method, that purification, you can't do it in paper and in thin layer chromatography. You'll be able to do it in other chromatographies, the one that we saw before, the gas chromatography, the liquid chromatography. You can do it in those kind of chromatography. So different chromatography has different scopes. Some can be used for only analysis, some can be used for quantification, some can be used for purification. Next. Where we are using chromatography, I told you all we are using it in hospitals to detect also the blood level, the alcohol level in a patient's bloodstream. We are using it in pharmaceutical companies, use chromatography a lot for some new chemical that they have found or some new formula that they are making and they're studying. Uh, at crime scenes, I gave you a lot of crime scenes example. We also use to find out the pollution level, how much pollutant is there in which water level, what, where, and if you're making a new chemicals in a manufacturing industry, also you're using it. So a lot of industries are using chromatography. We just don't know because we are not at that level to understand. But if you know the technique, the next time you come across the word as chromatography, you will know what it is and you will want to read about it more. Next. This is a summary. A thin layer chromatography is nothing but a thin layer of glass, metal, plastic, which has got a, a liquid that has been solidified on it. The word that we can use it is called as a solid adsorbent. The amount of mixture to be analyzed is put just near the bottom. The thin layer chromatography is then put in a pool of a solvent. We let the solvent run up. The liquid, whatever solvent we are putting, the mobile phase is slowly is rising up. And as it is rising up, the spot that we applied will now separate out into different components depending on the adsorption capacity of it between the solid phase and the mobile phase, between the stationary phase and the mobile phase. Okay, next. So we have finished with the session today about chromatography, the types of chromatography and everything. Okay. We want, if you've got any questions, please let us know so we can answer it.
Excuse me, ma'am, I have a question. Ma'am, what is the
Yes.
meaning of ratio?
Ratio is when you're dividing something to something. Okay. So if I'm dividing one divided by two, that becomes a ratio. Okay, and if I take it in terms of a unit, so I say if I'm dividing 1 kilometer by 2 kilometers, so then that kilometer will not come into the picture because I've divided two similar components. So now I will not tell it to be kilometers, I will say it is a ratio. It is dividing one quantity to another quantity, but they have to be same quantities, huh? They are of the same units. I can't divide, say, 10 centigrade divided by 1 centimeter. That will not become a ratio. In the ratio, I am dividing two similar quantities. Then I say it is a ratio. What is gas chromatography? But is asking, the gas chromatography is when the mobile phase used is gas, any kind of gas, depending on what our material is, what our mixture is. So that gas chromatography is when I'm using the liquid phase as a gas. Okay.
Ma'am, can you please explain RF factor again?
RF factor. See, RF factor is a ratio. When I'm dividing two similar objects, I call it as a ratio. RF factor is called as a retardation factor. So the retardation factor, can we go back to that slide of the RF factor? Or the slide where those colors were given? Yeah, here. So here in this RF factor, what am I doing is I'm calculating the RF factor for my red color, for example. So I will take the distance traveled by my red color from my baseline, from where I applied it on the line, to the distance traveled by my solvent. So can you see the upper black line? That is up till where my solvent has run. And the red mark is until where my red color has traveled. So both of them I'm taking it in distance. Both distances I am finding out. So those two distances when I am dividing for the red color divided by the solvent, I call that as my retardation factor. So my component divided by my solvent, I call it as my RF, retardation factor. And as I said, both of them are same, so they will not have a unit to it.
Excuse me, ma'am. In the paper chromatography,
Yes,
how did the molecules run up? Because the water was just beneath the ink, right?
it is beneath things. The water is getting absorbed, no, into the paper. The paper will if you put a paper in water, what happens? Tissue paper in water.
Ma'am, we have to
Slowly, water will run up, no?
into the water.
Yes, it has to be dipping into the water, slightly dipping into the water, but below the line of your ink mark. The paper has to be dipping in the in the water, in your solvent, but it should not let those points that you have put that also go into the water, because the minute you will put that in water, everything will immediately get dissolved in water. The process of chromatography will not happen. So you have to take care that you're just dipping the paper in water, but not at the level of your ink.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We will show a small video so that they get to see the process on how it is done.
Paper chromatography. Separate the colored components present in the mixture of red and blue inks by paper chromatography. We require a mixture of red and blue inks, distilled water, isopropyl alcohol, Whatman filter paper strip, pencil, scale, capillary tube, chromatographic chamber, etc. Take a Whatman filter paper strip. Draw a line with the pencil above 4 centimeters from one end. Draw another line lengthwise from the center of the paper and name the point at which the two lines intersect as P. Take a capillary tube. Dip it into the beaker containing the mixture of red and blue inks and take the mixture using the capillary tube. Put a drop of the mixture of red and blue inks at the point P. Allow it to dry in open air. Again, take the mixture of red and blue inks using the capillary tube. Put another drop on the same spot and dry it again so the spot is rich in mixture. Measure 5 ml of distilled water in a measuring jar. Pour it into the chromatographic chamber. Measure 5 ml of alcohol in another measuring jar. Put it into the chromatographic chamber containing distilled water. Mix the contents of the chromatographic chamber using a glass rod. This mixture is used as the solvent. Suspend the filter paper vertically in the chromatographic chamber containing the solvent in such a way that the pencil line remains about 2 centimeters above the solvent level. Close the chamber with its lid and keep it undisturbed for some time.
So did you all observe that the paper is dipped in the solution, but the ink marking that you have made, it is well above the point at which the paper is dipped.
Notice the rise in solvent along with the red and blue inks. When the solvent has risen to about 15 centimeters, you will notice 2 different spots of red and blue inks on the filter paper. Take the filter paper out of the chamber and mark the distance that the solvent has risen on the paper with a pencil. This is called the solvent front. Dry the filter paper in open air. Put pencil marks in the center of blue and red spots. Measure the distance of the solvent from the original line and the distance of the 2 spots from the original line. Calculate the RF values of blue and red inks by using the formula. RF is equal to distance traveled by the solute from the original line divided by distance traveled by the solvent from the original line.
So in this case, can you all answer like what will be the numerator? Distance traveled by the solute from the original line. Which distance will it be?
Ma'am, I'm pinned to KitKat lab, yet I still can't see the video.
You're pinned to KitKat lab, still you can't see the video. You have to keep yourself pinned to your presentation. Are the others able to see it?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So those who are able to see it, can you please reply? Like, did you all understand how the process is done? Did you all understand that?
Yes.
Okay. And then to calculate RF, you first measured the total distance, the solvent, that is the liquid, the solution which has the total height that it has attained. So that was about 15 centimeters, right?
Yes.
And so that is your denominator. Your numerator will be for the red ink, the numerator will be different. For the blue ink, the numerator will be different because both the components have risen to different heights. So the denominator in both cases will be 15 and the numerator will change depending upon the position of the red or blue ink. Let's watch further.
Separation of pigments from the extract of spinach leaves by paper chromatography.
Okay, so the first activity that they did was for separating the components of ink. Now what they're going to do is, we already discussed that the leaves also have many pigment. What we majorly know as chlorophyll, but then chlorophyll also has many types. Now let's observe in the second part of the video how they are separating different components of the leaf.
The original line divided by distance. Separation of pigments from the extract of spinach leaves by paper chromatography. We require extract of spinach leaves, distilled water, isopropyl alcohol, Whatman filter paper strip, pencil, scale, capillary tube, chromatographic chamber, etc. Take a Whatman filter paper strip. Using a pencil, draw a line that is above 4 centimeters from one end. Draw another line lengthwise from the center of the paper and name the point at which the two lines intersect as P. Take a capillary tube. Dip it into the beaker containing the extract of spinach leaves and take the mixture using the capillary tube. Put a drop of the spinach leaf extract at the point P and allow it to dry in open air. Again, take the extract of spinach leaves using the capillary tube. Put another drop on the same spot and dry it again so that the spot is rich in mixture. Measure 5 ml of distilled water in a measuring jar. Pour it into the chromatographic chamber. Measure 5 ml of alcohol in another measuring jar.
So what you have to observe is that the distilled water and the alcohol, they are taken in equal measures. Okay, so 5 ml of water and 5 ml of alcohol.
Pour it into the chromatographic chamber containing distilled water. Mix the contents of the chromatographic chamber using a glass rod. This mixture is used as the solvent. Suspend the filter paper vertically in the chromatographic chamber containing solvent in such a way that the pencil line remains about 2 centimeters above the solvent level. Close the chamber with its lid and keep it undisturbed for some time. Notice the rise in solvent along with the leaf extract. When the solvent has risen to about 15 centimeters, you will notice different spots of the components of spinach leaf extract on the filter paper. Take the filter paper out of the chamber and mark the distance that the solvent has risen on the paper with a pencil. This is called the solvent front. Dry the filter paper in open air. Put pencil marks in the center of each spot. Measure the distance of the solvent front from the original line and the distance of the spots from the original line.
So here, if you can observe, we all see that spinach is green in color, and we all know that it's only chlorophyll that it has. But then when we perform chromatography, we understand that it's not only one pigment, it has so many different colored pigment in it. So, I mean, spinach is a very simple example, but now with after knowing what chromatography technique is and after seeing it, you will be able to now understand that how important a discovery was finding out this technique, and it is so much useful in every aspect of research that is happening.
Calculate the RF values of the different spots by using the formula. RF is equal to distance travelled by the solute from the original line divided by distance travelled by the solvent from the original line.
Okay, so with this, we come to the end of the session. I would like to take a few minutes to explain or show you the e-laboratory portal and show you how you can go and take your chromatography quiz. So I hope you all have already created login credentials.
Yes.
Okay, others are, can the others listen? Like,